Welcome to Tigray Television. I'm here with the hour's news. Stay tuned. Reports have been revealing that sexual violence was weaponized during the war on Tigray. Our reporter Sarun Tsagai visited the one-stop center at Tigre Hospital and spoke with nurses who told her that the severity of the attack on women remains alarming despite the signing of the peace deal. Let's take a look.
Reports have been revealing that hundreds of thousands of women had been raped, gang-raped, and sexually enslaved by Eritrean and Ethiopian forces since the start of the war on Tigray in November of 2020. These survivors had been double victimized by denial of access to medical treatment, forcing them to live with their physical and psychological trauma for more than 2 years now. Sister Mulu Mesfin is a coordinator on the One-Stop Center for Sexual Assault Survivors in Tigre Hospital. Mulu has been working at this center before the outbreak of the war, but she says she had never experienced anything like this. She tells us that what happened in Tigray is beyond gender-based violence.
When one survivor comes to our center, she tells us she left 40 or 50 others on the camp. The troops kidnap hundreds of women and take them to their military camps. In there, the women are not only sexually assaulted, but beaten, insulted, and taunted by their Tigrayan identity, and their children get murdered in front of their eyes. Others are gang raped in front of their family, their community, and their husbands are forced to watch with their hands tied back. Their abusers tell them that their lives are on their hands while celebrating and drinking. So what happened in Tigray is beyond sexual violence.
Mulu says that the number of sexual assault survivors is still increasing and that the attack on women is ongoing. She says they're still receiving young girls and women from areas under the occupation of Eritrean forces, and that this time things are even worse as women are forced to witness their kids being killed and leave their corpses unburied behind after being sexually assaulted. Mulu says that they're still struggling to treat patients due to the ongoing lack of medical equipment.
The signing of a peace deal is good, but ever since the signing of the deal, not much has changed. We used to struggle due to lack of medication, lack of food, and starvation. We continue to struggle due to these things. We have survivors from 2020 still waiting for treatment, and many are adding to that number on a daily basis. Last year, we used to receive survivors accompanied by at least one family member, but now they come here all alone because their family members are slaughtered in their houses and the troops force them to lock their homes and leave without burying them. We recently received a 10-year-old who came all alone. On top of their physical wound, many face mental disorder due to these events. So to be honest, things are getting worse, not better.
Medical professionals at the center tell us that so far, many survivors had taken their own lives and that they struggle to keep survivors from inflicting harm to themselves. Sisana Kidane, a psychiatry professional and assistant lecturer at Mekelle University, tells us that the survivors struggle due to several psychological disorders such as post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and so on.
Most of women, girls, and men who have been abused have shown symptoms of psychiatric illnesses, beginning from the mild ones, which are changes in behavior, sleep disturbances, appetite change, beginning from those simple symptoms to even severe disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, bipolar, and other psychotic illnesses. And but the most common one is the post-traumatic stress disorder, where the clients show symptoms like flashbacks about what happened in that area. They lose sleep, they could not sleep, they have repetitive nightmares. They are so depressed, they have no hope in living at all.
ድምፀን ሂበን ህይወተን ባዕለን ነጥፋለ አለ መጀመሪያ ድምፀን ሀበትና ተገልጋሊትና በህይወታ ዓርሰ ቅትለት ፈጺማ ባዕላ ልሞተት እያ
The survivors want the whole world to know about what's happening to women in Tigray. We had many survivors who committed suicide after sharing their stories with the world. Our first service recipient committed suicide after sharing our story with the international media stations. We watch and stop many survivors from inflicting harm on themselves on a daily basis. This is because the international organization media stations are always speaking about the problem, but nothing is done so far.
Mulu cautions that justice for survivors is key to permanent permanent peace. Mulu thinks that failing to serve justice for these victims will send a bad message to perpetrators all over the world. She adds that the failure of the international community to do this on time has encouraged the perpetrators in Tigray to re-invade and finish what they later regretted they must have accomplished on their first round of invasion.
If justice had been served on time for what had been done last year and the year before, or at least in the early days of the news alert, they wouldn't have re-invaded Tigray and inflicted all this damage again. The perpetrators are our neighbors. We live together. They were in Tigray, then they were forced out of Tigray, and now they're back in most parts of Tigray, committing even worse crimes. And we don't have a guarantee that this won't happen in the near future if justice isn't served.
Despite hopes for the withdrawal of Eritrean forces following the signing of a peace deal back in November, millions continue to suffer in the hands of the invading forces, and women, at the receiving end of the multifaceted catastrophe, keep paying the highest price.
Residents of Mekelle city say that there is still a delay in the banking services in Tigray. The residents we spoke on the issue call for an immediate solution to their current misery. Noam Hadgu reports.
After the 2 years gruesome war, which was featured by the termination of basic services and necessities on Tigray, there is still delay in the banking service. Wagagan Bank announced the resumption of its services early. However, there are still complaints coming from the customers of the bank as they can't get full access to their prior deposits.
I am now in Wagagan Bank. I came here as soon as I heard the bank has started providing service. However, I could not properly get what I needed. I am only able to get 2,000 birr a day. It is insufficient as the holidays are approaching.
I came here as I heard Wagagan Bank has resumed its service. I am here to access my accounts. However, we are only able to get 2,000 birr.
I've been displaced twice, first from Humara to Shira and now from Shira to Mekelle. And now I came here to access my money in the bank. It's only allowed to access 2,000 birr. We can't even access our deposits.
The amount of cash allowed in the economic crisis of the society is unbalanced. The workers of the bank told us it is simply because the federal government has not allotted enough money. There are more than hundreds of thousands of customers of the bank, but as you can see, we are here to get only 2,000 birr, better than being empty-handed though.
The customers of the bank also noted that the federal government should take important steps so as to solve the deep-rooted socio-economic problems of the people in Tigray.
The amount of money we got is not enough. I called for the federal government to give us access to our deposits. We hope that banks in Tigray will resume their full service soon, according to the signed peace deal.
We call for the federal government to solve our problems as we were in their condition for the past 2 years now.
The deputy CEO of Wagagan Bank, Abraha Castle Branch, Fikerta Nagash, on her part said that the bank is currently working to solve the problems of its customers by sharing a limited amount of cash received from the depositors earlier, as there is no cash transfer made by the federal government.
So far, there is nothing we received from the federal government or the National Bank of Ethiopia. We're only sharing the money we received from the depositors to the other customers in need. We call for the government to endorse us money so that we can provide proper services to our customers.
Transport share companies based in Tigray say that they're hopefully waiting to restart delivering services till the federal government gives them security assurance to travel from and to the region. The companies also expressed their joy about resumption of basic services, including air transportation that doesn't appear affordable for the people who have been under a complete siege for over 2 years now. Haile Gabru has more on this.
Following the war declared on Tigray, the transportation sector has mainly been affected, leaving hundreds of thousands of passengers banned from moving from one place to another for the past 2 years in Tigray. Hagos Gidey, manager of Salam Bus Transportation Service, says he is happy about the truce signed in Pretoria, South Africa, enabling millions to get relief since the onset of the accord.
ናይ ሰላም እቲ ናይ ፕሪቶሪያን ናይ ኬንያን ሰላም ድርድር
We support the peace agreement signed in Pretoria, South Africa. We also appreciate for the resumption of air transportation, telecommunication as well. Nothing makes you happy more than seeing people reuniting with loved ones after a long time. Air transportation could help the rich people, but the land transportation may favor only the poor. Therefore, if the fuel problem is solved, if we get a security clearance by the federal government, we have finished all our preparations to serve the people as usual.
He also said that they are making contact with the head office in Addis following the resumption of telecommunication service in the region.
ናይ ሰላም ባስ አክሲዮን ማህበር ዋና ቢሮን አዲስ አበባ እዩ
Our head office is located in Addis Ababa. We have started communications regarding the matter. We are also hopeful to start providing services. However, we demand entry of fuel on one hand and road safety on the other.
Abrahat Umay is also the manager of Habesha Bus in Magala. He says his organization was able to transport thousands of people from Addis Ababa to Magala using 2 buses on a daily basis.
We were out of work for the past 2 years due to the war. However, we have now reopened our office following the peace deal signed in Pretoria, South Africa. Our head office in Addis told us that we would start providing service as fuel supply becomes accessible. Customers are coming now and then, asking when to start. However, we are just simply registering their list. We don't clearly tell them the date of the commencement.
We also met customers who came to ask information around the tickets office. They said that they are glad about the peace deal, but the federal government should keep its promise and resume the land transportation.
As to me, the stand of the people and government of Tigray was and is peace. We need it badly. We are here to ask in case bus transport starts. I am thankful to both the governments of Tigray and Ethiopia for their due efforts to bring lasting peace in the country. However, we require resumption of all services in the region soon.
Though air transportation is good, we also basically need land transportation for its cost effectiveness. Our transportation problem is not only from Tigray to Addis Ababa, but also within Tigray. If you want to go from Adwa to Shura, the area must be freed from the Eritrean enemy.
Bayano Wadaja, Road and Transportation Safety Coordinator at Tigray Road and Transport Bureau, said that large number of passengers used to travel from and to Tigray before November 4 of 2020.
Pre-war times, around 400 vehicles were providing service to different corners of the country, of which 100 of them were mainly working all over Ethiopia. However, there is no such transport operation at this time due to lack of fuel.
On top of this, he also says that vehicles are now simply stranded due to lack of fuel and spare parts following the 2-year-long siege on the region.
The resumption of air transportation into the region is somewhat good. However, it is a bit difficult for the poor to afford the price. It may help for people with better income. Our expectation was they would allow us the land transportation. We had exclusive bases like that of Salam, Habesha, Gion, Abai, and Zaman that are now stranded due to lack of fuel.
He also said that his office has not any connection with the federal government so far on the matter.
We thought that bus service would start following high-rank federal officials' visit to Magala. However, nothing has yet started to function regarding transportation in Tigray.
A mother goes through miscarriage as a result of lack of transportation. She was carried on a stretcher for 4 hours before she had arrived to a hospital, only to find out that the fetus was dead. Let's take a look. Mehret Gabriel, who is a resident of Zana district, northwestern Tigray, had been expecting a child until she lost it due to the siege-induced lack of transportation.
There was no ambulance, so they carried me from Zahamba to Medabaizana. I had known that something was wrong. While they were carrying me, they were moving me around. Right after I had arrived, I was told that I had a miscarriage. If there were ambulances, my child could have been saved.
Meheret's mother expresses how heartbreaking it is to lose a perfectly healthy fetus only due to transportation problems.
We left our home at 2 a.m. past midnight, walked on foot for 4 hours, carrying her, and finally arrived at 6 a.m. But even after all the effort, we ended up losing the child. Even now, she has gotten no treatment.
Brahana Abraha, head for the health office of Zana district, says over 20 mothers have lost their lives during labor, according to a research assessed in the past 2 years of the conflict.
ኣብ 2014 ኣሰስመንት ተጽኒዕና ነርና ኢና ከባቢ 16 ኣዴታት ሞይተናና ኣለዋ ማለት እዩ
According to the research we've conducted in 2014 Ethiopian calendar, over 16 mothers have died in this district and 4 mothers have died in the few months of 2015 Ethiopian calendar. But this research only covers few places.
Brahana Abraha, head for the health office of Zana district, says over 20 mothers have lost their lives during labor, according to a research assessed in the past 2 years of the conflict.
ናውቴለን ወሊድ አገልግሎት ኣብ ጥዕና ትካላትና በጽሕዎ ዝነበረ ደረጃ ኸዚ ምንም ናብ ጥዕና ትካል ምምጻን ኣብ ገዛኻ ኮይንካ ምውላድን ማዕረ እዩ
There are no medical equipment. All our medical institutions have been destroyed. Delivering your baby at these health centers and home births are practically the same now. It is sad to think about the level of the health system we have reached. Mothers are forced to do stitches without anesthesia.
Chief Executive Officer of Ethiopian Pharmaceutical Supply Agency Tigray branch says the medical supplies that started trickling into Tigray are far from solving the shortage of medical supplies on the ground. Aragai Garumkel has more.
Medical supplies in Tigray are depleted due to the 2 years gruesome war. Accordingly, chronic illness patients were forced to terminate their medications, and many are dying from treatable diseases due to lack of medical supplies. Chief Executive Officer of Ethiopian Pharmaceuticals Supply Agency of the Tigray branch, Alamayo Gabramariam, says, though medical supplies were starting to trickle into Tigray, the amount and types of medicines are far from resolving the shortage of medical supplies on the ground and the need of the society.
We're grateful for the medical supplies we've been receiving from the federal institutions. However, the amounts of medical supplies that started trickling are not matching the need of the society on the ground. The amount of medical supplies that we received so far could only meet the need of 2 or 3 hospitals in Tigray. So we are forced to unevenly distribute a little amount to each hospital and health centers in Tigray.
According to Alamayo, though there are more than 30,000 diabetic patients in Tigray, the insulin that arrived so far would only be helpful to treat 4 to 5,000 patients.
Insulin is a medicine for diabetic patients, so the amount of insulin that arrived so far is only helpful to treat 4 to 5,000 patients. But the amount of insulin we need is for more than 30,000 patients. Metformin is also another medicine for diabetic patients, but the amount we have at hand would only enable us to treat a few hundred only. So we're only appreciating the beginning, otherwise the need and the supplies are disproportionate so far.
Alamayo also says the need of basic medical supplies in Tigray is still critical, though there is some improvement on health program medicines.
The supply of health program medicines like TB, HIV patients and vaccinations is improved compared to the past 2 years as there was none. So far, we've received vaccinations and ART medications for HIV patients, which could last for 2 months, but the shortage of basic medicines is still critical. RDF medicines are purchased by the internal budget of health centers. However, all this is unimaginable for health centers in Tigray, as they are working without getting any budget for over 2 years now. So there is a great shortage and need of basic medicines in Tigray.
It has been more than 2 months since a peace agreement was signed between the governments of Tigray and Ethiopia. However, people in Tigray are still dying of treatable diseases due to lack of medical supplies.
Eyewitnesses in Zana district say numerous people in Tigray are still dying of hunger as aid has not yet reached some parts of Tigray. Mahari Tadessa has the details.
The news of the peace agreement heralded from Pretoria brought hope to the world and especially to the people who tasted the very bitter nature of the war. After this, people expected to see a bright future, but people in Zana district say they are still suffering as the NGOs could not be able to reach them.
ካብቶም ነጥብታት ሓደ ዘይተገደበ ሰብኣዊ ሓገዝ ምእታው ነይሩ
One of the points of the agreement was to deliver unhindered humanitarian aid, but there is no aid until now. Especially the IDPs in our environment are in serious plight because there is no banking service. They have no clothes to wear and no shelter to live in. Before the war broke out, we had work and there was no hardship to live.
IDPs from western and northwestern Tigray are here. They have nothing to eat. They also don't have shelter. Most of them live with their residents. I don't know why the NGOs could not come here. Maybe it is because all routes are blocked.
Latikidan Kiros and Trahas Alam are mother and daughter. They live in Dana district. They say that they were helping each other and eager to lead their life properly before the war broke out, and they were in fine health status. But now they are in a dark life.
Before the war broke out, we had work and there was no hardship to live. We used to lead our life quite well.
I used to work in sewer construction. I was trying to sell coffee and tea part-time. Peace is good. Before the war broke out, I had a good job. But now, we're facing serious starvation. She's my mother. She always feels sick and has become a bedridden.
Administrator of Zana district, Mulati Hidogo, assured that there is no any humanitarian access to the districts before and after the peace agreements. Several are starved to death as the results.
ዘተ ሰላም ጅማር ይኹን ድሕረት ዘተ ሰላም ምግባሩ
Before and after the peace agreement has been signed, we have not seen any service and humanitarian aid. Therefore, the society is in a serious economic problem. Some mothers, children, and others are dying of hunger.
The residents also say that the most important solution to that problem is withdrawal of Eritrean and Amhara forces. Besides, they suggest, according to the peace agreement, the two forces should withdraw from the area to save lives of the people.
The Eritrean troops and the Amhara Fano are committing extrajudicial killings and sexual violence in the areas they occupied. We're in danger. To solve this problem, banking and telecommunication services should be reopened. Humanitarian aid should reach here, and the allied forces should withdraw from the entire part of Tigray, and the agreement should be implemented properly. That wraps up our news for the hour. I'm Maren from Ma'ala Tigray. Thank you for tuning in.